We're going back to chapter 1, financial mathematics. So this unit there's not going to be a test on this chapter. We're just going to do a end of the chapter project, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, we should finish this unit in the next few days. And this is just some important terms you should know going into, being probably some of you are probably getting your first job now, and probably need to know things like salary and overtime and gross pay, net pay, and that kind of stuff. So we're going to go over that in section 1, actually. And then later on, you can see some of the key terms here in chapter 1. We're going to talk about deductions, commissions, bonus, piecework, contract, shift pay, net pay, gross pay, hourly wage, salary. Okay. So let's just go into it. So we're not going to do the review section or the 1.0. So hopefully you know how to go from percent to decimal, decimal to percent, and that sort of thing. There's 12 months in a year. You know that, it's roughly 4 weeks in most months. So that sort of thing. So going into 1.1, wage and salary. So I'll go through the examples here, and I'll try to go over key terms as well. So let me zoom in a little bit, and maybe we can even make this full screen. There we go. Okay, so first term here is salary. Okay, salary is going to be like a fixed amount of pay that you get for a certain period. So you can get paid salary per month, salary, or you can get salary for the year. Okay, so salary doesn't depend on how much you work. So if your salary is $50,000 a year, it doesn't matter you worked 40 hours a week or 45 hours a week, whatever was agreed upon, and that's going to be your salary. Okay. Hourly wage, on the other hand, so just like it name implies, you get paid per the hour. Okay. So you have two schedules here. For example, this is Alex's schedule and Julia's schedule. So Julia gets paid $16 per hour, and Alex is getting 2,200 per month. So which is better, to get salary or to get hourly wage? And that depends. So we're not going to calculate this, but to see who got paid more, you'd have to, see all the hours for the hourly wage for Julia, and then multiply it by 16, right? So 4 hours a Monday, she worked another almost 5.5 hours on Tuesday, and then you multiply 16, you can compare it to 2,200. Okay, which is the better deal? It depends. So in general, when you're deciding what you want, hourly wage will be better if you want to work a lot of hours, and then you get paid for those hours. But salary also has the benefit of, you have this constant income coming in, and you know exactly how much you're getting paid, and maybe you just don't want to work a crazy amount of hours, so salary might be a better option. Yeah. Okay, so that's the difference between those two. Okay, so the pay structure depends on the hours and what you would like as well. Okay, example 1. Okay, here we're going to calculate gross pay. So what is gross pay, first of all? On the left it says right here, gross pay, total earnings from a salary, hourly wage, or other payments methods such as tips, also called gross income. So gross pay is basically, yeah, your total amount of money that you made. So we're not talking about taxes and deductions and that kind of stuff yet. So gross pay is just going to be, if say you're a waiter, your hourly rate that you're getting, plus it's going to be the tips and stuff. So the total amount of money you made is your gross pay. Yeah. So let's go through a couple examples. Example 1, calculate gross pay with tips. Yeah. Connor works as a horse-drawn carriage tour guide in Stanley Park. Okay, cool. I'm not sure if anybody's been on this, but I haven't, but it looks fun. He is paid $15.50 per hour and is paid weekly. This 4-pay month, he worked 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And 8 hours a day, 8 hours per day is usually standard. So that's kind of like what most people would work. And then we'll talk about overtime. And then usually if you work more than 8 hours, you'll get paid a little bit extra. But anyways, he works 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Connor is an extremely knowledgeable guide. For this reason, many tourists give him a tip ranging from $2 to $20. This month, he earned the following amount in tips. Okay, so you can see week 1, 2, 3, and 4, how much you made. What is Connor's gross pay for the month? So the gross pay for the month, again, that's gonna be his total amount of money he's gonna earn. So first you gotta see how much he worked, his hours. So he says this, he worked 8 hours per day, 5 days a week. So if you multiply 8 times 5, that gives you 40. So he worked 40 hours per week. Yeah, so he worked 40 hours per week, and then how many weeks did you work? 40 times 4 because of the 4 weeks. So that would give you 160 hours for the month. And then the 160 hours, you're going to multiply it by $15.50 because he makes that much per hour and you worked 160 hours, and that'll give you his total amount that he made just from his hourly rate, right? And then you're gonna have to add all the tips as well to get your gross pay. So that's a game plan, and let's see the steps. So they just basically do that. So you calculate how many hours per week, 8 hours per day, 5 days in a week, 40 hours. You can see the work here. And then the second step is they take the 40 hours and then, oh, instead of multiplying by 4, they just do it the other way around. So 40 hours per week times $15.50 per hour, right? So 40 times 50 gives you $620 that he makes in 1 week, right? So if he makes that much in 1 week, you multiply that by 4 to get the monthly income hourly rate. So he gets $2,480. So we're not quite done yet because we know that on top of his hourly rate, he also has all this tip. So basically, you take this number that we calculated and add all the tips. So where is it? So they did another method as well. Just ignore method 2, and you can see over here they're adding the tips. So all 4 weeks tips to get 470, and add that 470 to 2,480 that we calculated earlier, and you'll get Connor's gross pay to be $2,950. Okay. Okay, good. Let's just go into another example. Example 2. And example 2, the key word here now is overtime. Did we miss anything here? No, we talked about gross pay. So overtime, what that is if you work more hours than you're supposed to, basically, you get, or that you're scheduled to, you'll get paid an additional amount. And this amount depends on a few things, but roughly the initial overtime rate is going to be about 1.5 times your original hourly rate. So for example, if you're making $10 an hour, that's your normal rate, your overtime rate is going to be 1.5 times 10, which is $15 an hour. So yeah. An example of that might be, say you're working at a grocery store and you work your 8 hours and you make $20 an hour, and then your manager comes up to you and saying, hey, we're kind of busy today, can you work an extra couple hours? So the first 8 hours you'll make that $20 an hour, and then hours 9 and 10 you'll get 1.5 times 20, which is going to be 30, right? So for hours 9 and 10 you'll make $30 an hour. So it's like an incentive for you to stay, and kind of also the inconvenience of having to work extra long, you'll get compensated by making a little bit more money. Okay, so that's basically what overtime is. Okay, I think that just talk about overtime, and then there's things like double time too. So overtime generally 1.5 times, and if you hit a certain threshold, you can or you work long enough, say hours 9 and 10, the 2 extra hours, you get 1.5 times. But then hours, say you have to work a couple more hours, so hours 11 to 12, your boss and your company might give you double time, which will be 2 times. So instead of getting $30 an hour for overtime, you'll get $40 an hour in double pay. Okay, hopefully that wasn't too confusing. And the last kind of term here we're going to talk about before we jump into this question is shift premium. So certain shifts, it says they are undesirable, and an example is overnight shifts. So nobody wants to work, or most people don't want to work at like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. It messes up your sleep schedule. Working overnights a lot is actually really bad for your health, when your long-term health. There's been studies saying that people on average don't live as long that worked their whole lives overtime compared to people who work like a normal daytime schedule. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Anyways, so the shift premium is the company pays you a little bit extra per hour or whatnot, because you're working in an undesirable shift. So Another example, again, if you're working at a warehouse and you're making $15 an hour during the day, and then they say, hey, Tom, why don't you work at night? And you don't want to work at night, but they're like, okay, Tom, we'll give you $17 an hour instead of 15. So that $2 extra will be the shift premium. Yeah. Okay, shift premium overtime, we kind of talked about it. Now let's go into example 2. Okay, calculate gross pay with overtime. So Sarah works in a long-term care facility as a personal support worker. Her hourly wage is $19.50 per hour. If she works more than 40 hours in a week, she receives overtime for the extra hours. Overtime in British Columbia is equal to 1.5 times regular pay. This is often called time and a half. Okay, so it makes sense because you're getting your time, 1.0, whatever your regular rate, and a half, the 0.5 added to it, so time and a half. So in this example, let's, whenever you get word problems, kind of dissect it really quickly. I usually just look for the numbers really quickly. So hourly wage, $19.50 an hour. If she works more than 40 hours a week, she'll get overtime, which is 1.5. Okay. So this month, Sarah worked the following hours. Okay. So week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. Sarah's paid bi-weekly. What is her gross pay for the first 2 weeks of this month? Okay, so bi-weekly means that you get paid every 2 weeks. Okay, so if you get paid bi-weekly, you'll get one check after week 1 and 2. Your company or boss, whatever, will give you a check saying this is how much money you made, or it could be direct deposit now. It goes directly to your bank account. Anyways, in week 3, 4 will be your next paycheck or payday. Okay. And so looking at these numbers, you can see that some weeks, like week 2 and week 3, she worked more than 40 hours. So these 2 weeks, you can see that she'll get 5 hours of overtime here and 2 hours of overtime here because it's more than 40, right? So to calculate this, if 40 and under will just be her regular 19.50 rate per hour. So you can just multiply them if we can figure it out. And the extra 5 hours, we're going to have to do time and a half. So time and a half, how much is time and a half in this case? It's going to be 1.5 times 1950, which they do here, is 29.25. So her normal hourly rate is 1950. Her time and a half rate is 29.25. Okay. So again, for week 2, you're going to have to do like 40 times 1950 because that's how much she gets the first 40 hours, plus 5 times the 29.25. Okay. So that's kind of what they do here. So let's look at the solution here. So first they figured out how much she gets paid in overtime per hour, which is 29.25 by multiplying 1.5 times 1950. And secondly, the next thing they do is they calculating her first paycheck, right? Bi-weekly, so first 2 weeks. So the first week is going to be 38 times 1950 because it's all regular pay, right? That makes sense. 38 times 1950 plus 40, so 40 hours of the week 2 times 1950 plus 5 because the 5 extra hours she worked is going to be at the 29.25 rate. So you can see that week 1 was right here. Week 2 is right here, but has the regular rate and then the extra overtime rate. So hopefully this makes sense. And once you calculate both weeks, you add them together and you can get her first 2 weeks. She made $1,667.25. Okay, so that was her gross pay. So how much she got paid before her taxes and any deductions came into play. Okay. What else? Are we done here? Not quite. We also need to calculate week 3 and 4, I think. Oh no, that's it. That's all we had to do for A. Let's see what we have to do for B. If Sarah works in an overnight shift, she receives a shift premium. Again, shift premium is just like a bonus amount of money to pay because you're working an undesirable shift of $2 an hour in addition to regular pay. In week 4, Sarah worked only overnight shifts. What is her gross pay on her second paycheck this month? Okay, now we're going to calculate the second paycheck. Okay, and remember this paychecks are bi-weekly, so it's going to just include weeks 3 and 4. Okay, and week 4 is going to be a little special because it's all overnight, and she's going to get paid the $19.50 plus the $2, so she's going to be at $21.50 for week 4, right? And week 3, you know that kind of like what we did before. First 40 hours, she's making $19.50, and the 2 hours extra, she's making the $29.25. So You can see B, first what they're doing is calculating the shift premium, right, which is 1950 plus 2, because that's the premium here, 2150. Secondly, we're going to add week 3 and week 4. So again, week 3, it was over here. The first 40 hours is at 1950, so that's the 40 times 1950. Plus, there's that 2 extra hours, so 2 times 29.25 for the overtime pay. Okay, plus, now let's look at week 4, which is 35 hours, and she's getting 21.50 because it's the 19.50 plus the $2 of shift premium. Then you get your total once you do the math and just add the numbers together, $1,591 on our second paycheck. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Hourly wage, overtime, salary, shift premium, um, double time. So hopefully those terms kind of make sense, and hopefully it's pretty straightforward how to calculate uh, income or gross pay, um, either through their salary, their overtime, hourly wage, or a combination of all of the above. Okay, so that's it for 1.1. We'll finish off chapter 3 probably tomorrow, and we'll introduce the project on Friday as well.